Keanu Reeves was not merely a celebrated actor, he was a man whose quiet compassion resonated far beyond the silver screen. Every day he navigated the bustling city with humble purpose, using his fame not for pomp, but to quietly serve others. On a chilly evening, after a modest dinner in a little-known cafe, he stepped out into the rain-soaked streets as neon lights shimmered on wet pavement and passing strangers hurried by. His eyes fell upon a battered sedan parked under a flickering street lamp. Inside, a solitary figure huddled, a woman whose tired eyes and downcast expression told stories of hardship. In her arms lay a fragile baby, wrapped in a threadbare blanket. The sight struck a deep chord within him, stirring memories of his own early struggles. Without fanfare or pretense, Keanu resolved to help in any way he could, even if that meant risking misunderstandings in a world too quick to judge. Inside the dilapidated car, Emily sat with her infant son Jack, cradled tenderly against her chest. Once Emily had dreamed of a bright future, working diligently as a cashier in a modest apartment. Life, however, had shifted unexpectedly when rent soared and work hours dwindled, leaving her teetering on the edge of survival. Now the car was her only shelter, a fragile refuge from the relentless storm of misfortune. The metal frame of the vehicle bore the marks of countless nights spent in solitude, while Jack's wide, questioning eyes reflected a longing for stability. Emily's weary face, lined with both sorrow and determination, told a story of lost opportunities and unyielding hope. Every breath she took was a silent promise to protect her child, despite the overwhelming odds. In that moment, as Keanu observed from afar, the depth of her struggle resonated with him, stirring a resolve to intervene in the face of injustice. From a discreet distance, Keanu observed the poignant scene unfolding in the glow of the street lamp. His heart, seasoned by years of witnessing hardship, recognized the silent language of despair and resilience. He recalled his own past, moments when a simple act of kindness had altered the course of a day, or even a life. Standing there, he felt an inner conflict. The urge to help clashed with a deep-seated caution about imposing on someone's private pain. As Emily gently rocked Jack to soothe him, every gesture spoke of a quiet dignity amidst adversity. Keanu's mind churned with questions. How could he offer support without undermining her pride? Would his intervention be perceived as patronizing, or would it open a door to hope? In that reflective pause, his compassionate nature took precedence over celebrity reserve, setting in motion a plan that would soon entangle his fate with hers in unexpected and dramatic ways. Choosing silence over clamor, Keanu acted with understated resolve. Instead of intruding with words that might be misinterpreted, he reached into his coat pocket and extracted a crisp, folded envelope containing a modest sum of money and a small care package. With deliberate care, he placed these items on the windshield of Emily's car, a silent gesture meant to speak louder than any grand proclamation. As he turned to leave, his eyes lingered a moment longer, silently urging her to find hope in the unexpected kindness. When morning light revealed the envelope, Emily's hands trembled with conflicted emotions. Her pride waged war against her desperate need, and for a long moment, she stared at the envelope as if it were a lifeline. The tangible offer of help was both a beacon and a reminder of her vulnerability, a quiet promise that even in the depths of despair, compassion could emerge from the most unassuming sources. Emily's discovery of the envelope set off a maelstrom of internal debate. In the dim light of dawn, she sat silently in the car, the envelope lying open on the worn dashboard. Every instinct warned her to reject help, to preserve her dignity in a world that had already stripped so much away. Yet the tender cries of her infant son broke through her resolve. The money, though modest, represented a possibility. A chance to buy necessities like food and medicine. Memories of better times intermingled with the stark reality of her current existence. The struggle was palpable. Pride versus survival, self-reliance versus the need for mercy. Her mind churned with the fear of judgment if she accepted charity, but also with the desperate hope that accepting help might spark a change in her bleak circumstances. In that quiet moment, Emily realized that sometimes accepting kindness was not an admission of defeat, but a step toward reclaiming one's life. In the days that followed, Keanu's initial gesture evolved into a steadfast determination to break through Emily's fragile defenses. He found himself returning to the same street corner, observing from a distance as the daily routine of hardship unfolded before his eyes. Each visit deepened his resolve. He began to research local resources and support networks that could offer genuine, lasting help. His inner monologue was filled with reflections on the systemic failures that had led countless souls to such dire straits. Despite knowing that one person's kindness might not overturn an entire system of neglect, he felt compelled to do whatever he could. His nights were restless, filled with the weight of responsibility and the urgency of the moment. Every time he passed by the parked car, his heart urged him to take more decisive action, to be the spark that could ignite a change. Even if it meant confronting the harsh realities embedded in the urban landscape, trouble began to stir when the local authorities, ever vigilant of disturbances in the neighborhood, started patrolling the area more frequently. Emily's car, a silent testament to her struggles, became a focal point of suspicion for those tasked with enforcing city ordinances. One cold evening, as rain slicked the pavement and streetlights cast long, ominous shadows, Emily noticed the unmistakable glint of police badges. Her heart sank as she watched officers approach, their presence adding an edge of dread to an already precarious existence. The looming threat of a citation, or worse, a formal reprimand, underscored the vulnerability of her situation. In that fraught atmosphere, the potential for a misunderstanding grew exponentially. Keanu, hidden in the peripheral glow of the lamplight, felt a chill not from the weather, but from the realization that his good intentions might inadvertently trigger a cascade of consequences far beyond his control, plunging both him and Emily into an escalating maelstrom of conflict. The inevitable confrontation came one bitter evening when an officer, his tone as hard as the concrete beneath their feet, approached Emily's car. "Ma'am, you're in violation of local codes. We have reports of loitering," he barked, his voice echoing in the silent street. Emily's hands tightened on the steering wheel as fear mingled with defiance. "I'm just trying to survive," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the patter of rain. Keanu, who had been watching from a discreet distance, felt an impulse surge within him. Without hesitation, he moved closer, his voice firm yet compassionate as he attempted to intercede. "There's no harm here," he said, his words carrying the weight of genuine concern. But the officer's expression hardened, and in that moment the tension coalesced into a harsh reality, where even an act of kindness could be misread, igniting a volatile spark that no one could have anticipated. Before anyone could defuse the situation, a series of miscommunications erupted into a startling escalation. In a split second, the officer, misinterpreting Keanu's intervention as complicity, moved to secure the scene with a heavy hand. "Step out of the car, ma'am," he ordered brusquely. Emily's protests were drowned out by the clink of handcuffs as she was roughly escorted from her only refuge. The injustice of the moment was palpable. Here was a desperate mother, already teetering on the edge, now entangled in a system that punished her for existing in public spaces. Jack's cries pierced the night as the officer's grip tightened, and Keanu's heart pounded with fury and helplessness. In that instant, the line between protecting a vulnerable life and challenging a flawed system blurred, leaving everyone to face the bitter consequences of a moment turned tragically wrong. The immediate aftermath was a scene of chaos and despair. Emily, disoriented and frightened, was led away into the harsh fluorescent glare of a police station, while Jack was separated from her and placed under temporary care. A decision that tore at the hearts of bystanders. Keanu stood frozen at the periphery, his mind racing with guilt and regret. Every fiber of his being screamed that this was not justice, but an unforgiving miscarriage of compassion. Onlookers, initially silent, began murmuring their discontent as news of the arrest spread like wildfire on nearby social media platforms. The painful image of a loving mother being penalized for survival clashed violently with the public's innate sense of fairness. As the rain continued to fall, each drop carried a silent lament for the lives caught in the crossfire of a system too rigid to accommodate desperate human need, leaving behind a trail of questions with no easy answers. Within hours, the incident exploded into a full-blown media frenzy. Headlines screamed, "Keanu Reeves' compassion turned controversy. Homeless mother arrested" across online platforms and local news channels. Social media buzzed with heated debates as citizens passionately defended Emily while condemning the harsh measures taken by the authorities. Videos and images of the arrest circulated rapidly, each frame capturing a moment of heartbreak and injustice. Keanu found himself thrust into the eye of the storm, a man whose sincere attempt at kindness had inadvertently fueled a firestorm of public outrage. Protesters gathered outside the police station, demanding accountability and reform, while pundits debated the systemic issues that allowed such a scenario to unfold. In the midst of this chaos, the narrative evolved from a simple act of compassion to a broader indictment of societal neglect, stirring emotions and forcing even the most indifferent onlookers to confront uncomfortable truths about the world they inhabited. Determined to reclaim the narrative from the clutches of misunderstanding, Keanu stepped forward to address the media in a solemn press conference. Standing before a sea of flashing cameras and microphones, he spoke with measured conviction, his words steeped in the authenticity that had always defined him. "I stand before you not as a savior, but as a fellow human being," he began, his voice resonating with empathy. "What happened to Emily is not a crime. It is a failure of a system that too often punishes the vulnerable instead of protecting them." His statement, interlaced with heartfelt appeals for reform and justice, ignited a spark among supporters and critics alike. Every sentence was crafted with ethos and pathos, urging the public to see beyond the immediate outrage and consider the deeper issues at hand. Keanu's measured tone and unwavering sincerity turned the media spotlight into a platform for change, challenging established norms and inviting a nationwide conversation about compassion and accountability. As the days passed, the community's response transformed into a palpable uproar. Neighbors, local activists, and even previously indifferent citizens took to the streets, their voices merging into a powerful chorus demanding justice for Emily. Protesters waved handmade signs and chanted slogans that decried systemic injustice, calling for reform in policies that punished rather than helped the needy. Heated debates erupted in town halls and community centers, with residents sharing personal accounts of similar struggles and unacknowledged hardships. Social media platforms became battlegrounds for impassioned discussions, where every post and comment further stoked the flames of dissent. Even those who had never before ventured into civic activism found themselves compelled to stand up and demand accountability. The movement grew organically, not as a reaction to a single incident, but as a unified call for a society that truly values compassion, fairness, and the dignity of every human life. In quiet moments away from the relentless media glare, Emily's past began to unfold like a fragile memoir. Once a vibrant young woman with dreams of building a secure life for her son, she had experienced the slow erosion of stability. Once employed full-time in a modest retail job, her world had shattered when unexpected hardship struck. Losing her job, her savings dwindling, and an abrupt increase in rent that left her scrambling for survival. Her story was one of gradual descent, the loss of a cherished home, estrangement from distant relatives who could not bridge the gap of shame and misunderstanding, and the struggle to maintain hope in a world that seemed increasingly indifferent. In recalling those memories, a deep-seated sorrow mingled with a resilient spark of determination. Despite the many obstacles, Emily's love for Jack remained her guiding force, fueling her desire to persevere even as each setback tested the limits of her endurance. Just when it seemed the battle for justice might gain momentum, fate intervened with an unexpected twist that darkened the already turbulent narrative. An encounter with a bitter ex-partner, one whose resentment had festered over lost love and broken promises, thrust Emily into an even deeper crisis. The ex-partner's malicious presence added fuel to the conflagration as he exploited her vulnerable state for his own gain. In a confrontation on a rain-soaked street, harsh words escalated into a physical altercation that left Emily bruised and shaken. The confrontation, captured partly on a stray bystander's phone, sent shockwaves through the community and further complicated her case. Keanu, witnessing the unfolding drama from afar, was struck by the realization that her personal battles were inextricably linked to a broader, systemic failure. A failure that allowed those with personal vendettas to exploit the misery of others. The twist underscored a truth too bitter to ignore. Even when help arrives, fate may still deal a cruel hand. Haunted by the recent turn of events and determined to right the wrongs he had inadvertently set in motion, Keanu's involvement deepened. No longer content with distant observation, he began to actively coordinate with local shelters, legal advocates, and community organizers who shared his vision of a more compassionate society. Late-night phone calls, frantic meetings, and the tireless search for resources became his new reality. Every conversation with social workers, every discussion with legal experts was driven by a single purpose: to ensure that Emily received the help she so desperately needed and that her case became a rallying cry for systemic reform. Though the path was fraught with bureaucratic delays and interpersonal conflicts, Keanu's resolve remained unshaken. His personal sacrifices grew heavier each day, yet the flicker of hope in every grateful word from those he assisted kept his spirit alive. In that crucible of chaos, he transformed from a concerned observer into a committed catalyst for change. Inevitably, the matter reached the formal corridors of justice as Emily's case was brought before a local court. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with tension, every seat filled with onlookers who had followed the story with bated breath. Emily, still reeling from the trauma of arrest and personal loss, sat with trembling hands as the proceedings began. The prosecutor painted a grim picture of public nuisance and disorder, while Keanu's legal team argued vehemently for compassion and recognition of systemic failures. The debate was no longer merely about one woman's struggle, but had evolved into a broader discourse on societal responsibility. Every legal word, every piece of evidence presented, was weighed against a backdrop of public opinion and moral urgency. The courtroom drama, charged with conflicting emotions and ideologies, promised a verdict that could redefine the community's understanding of justice, leaving those present on the edge of their seats. In the charged atmosphere of the courtroom, Emily's testimony unfolded as a raw and unfiltered account of her life's hardships. With tears glistening in her eyes, she recounted the cascade of events that had led her to the car. A home that sheltered both her sorrows and her fierce maternal love. Keanu stood by her side, his presence a silent vow of solidarity amid the harsh glare of legal scrutiny. The prosecution's arguments clashed with the heartfelt pleas from her defense, each word resonating with the collective weight of a society grappling with its own contradictions. Witnesses testified, emotions ran high, and every rebuttal served to underscore the complexities of a system that often punished the desperate. The tension was palpable as each piece of evidence was dissected in real time, leaving everyone in the courtroom to question the true nature of justice and the cost of a society that too readily sacrificed the vulnerable at the altar of order. Outside the courtroom, the battle of opinions intensified as news of the trial divided the community. Social media platforms were inundated with fervent posts and impassioned debates. On one side, supporters of Emily decried the harsh treatment meted out to a desperate mother, citing systemic failures and calling for reforms that prioritized humanity over rigid regulations. On the other, skeptics argued that rules were in place for a reason, contending that leniency might lead to further disorder. Public forums, local radio shows, and even casual conversations in coffee shops were dominated by discussions that questioned the balance between law and compassion. The clash of perspectives, fueled by personal experiences and a shared sense of injustice, revealed the deep-seated divisions within a community, struggling to reconcile idealism with reality. Amidst this polarized environment, the trial became not just a legal proceeding, but a symbol of the larger struggle for fairness, in a world where every act of kindness could spark controversy. Just as the momentum for change seemed to be building, an unforeseen scandal threatened to upend the entire narrative. Leaked recordings of a private conversation between a key law enforcement official and a political figure revealed disturbing insights into the motivations behind the harsh treatment of those living on the margins. The recordings hinted at ulterior motives, power struggles, and personal vendettas masked by the veneer of public safety. As these revelations emerged, the public's trust in the system wavered, and accusations of corruption spread like wildfire. The dark turn not only complicated Emily's case but also cast a shadow over every act of compassion that had been championed by Keanu and his supporters. The scandal forced the community to confront an uncomfortable truth. that even well-intentioned actions could be manipulated by forces determined to maintain a status quo, steeped in injustice. In this maelstrom of betrayal and anger, every question seemed to lead to even darker uncertainties. Determined to counter the insidious forces undermining the cause, Keanu and his growing coalition of advocates waged a tireless battle for justice. Late-night meetings, impassioned rallies, and strategic legal maneuvers became the norm, as they fought not only for Emily's freedom, but for the rights of all those marginalized by a broken system. Every new piece of evidence, every heartfelt testimony, was used to build an unassailable case against the pervasive corruption that had tainted the process. In community centers and public squares, voices united in a call for accountability, demanding that those responsible be held to account. Though the struggle was steeped in bitter conflict and marred by setbacks, the determination to overturn systemic injustice fueled every step. The battle was far from over, and each small victory was a testament to the enduring power of collective resolve, even as the challenges ahead promised more trials and sacrifices. As the prolonged struggle took its toll, even those with the purest intentions found themselves paying a heavy personal price. Keanu, whose public persona had long been synonymous with quiet altruism, began to feel the isolating sting of constant scrutiny and relentless pressure. Late nights filled with legal briefings and media interviews replaced the peaceful anonymity he once cherished. His relationships, once simple and unburdened, now bore the weight of an unending crusade against systemic neglect. Every sacrifice, lost sleep, strained friendships, and moments of solitary reflection served as a painful reminder that fighting for change often came at the expense of personal well-being. Yet, amid this turmoil, Keanu's determination never wavered. Each setback, each tear shed by a mother or a protester, reinforced his belief that the cost of indifference was far greater than the price of compassion. In the crucible of public service, even the strongest heart sometimes bore scars that could never fully fade. In a stunning turn of events that defied every expectation, a pivotal piece of evidence emerged at the 11th hour. A previously unknown witness, a quiet bystander who had been recording the entire ordeal on their mobile phone, stepped forward with footage that not only corroborated Emily's account, but also revealed startling irregularities in the conduct of the arresting officers. The video, raw and unfiltered, captured moments of excessive force and unprofessional conduct that had been shrouded in ambiguity until then. The twist sent shockwaves through the courtroom and ignited a new wave of outrage among the public. For the first time, the narrative shifted from a tale of isolated hardship to an exposé on systemic abuse. The revelation left everyone questioning previously accepted truths, forcing even hardened skeptics to confront the possibility that the scales of justice had long been tipped in favor of the powerful, leaving the vulnerable to suffer the consequences of their neglect. After weeks of heated courtroom battles and public protest, the day of reckoning arrived. The judge, visibly weighed down by the gravity of the evidence and the impassioned pleas of both sides, delivered a verdict that was as unexpected as it was controversial. In a measured tone, she declared that while Emily would not be condemned outright, she would be placed under strict probation and required to participate in community rehabilitation programs. The ruling, a complex compromise that neither fully vindicated nor entirely punished, sparked an immediate outpouring of mixed reactions. Some saw it as a step toward reparation, while others decried it as a symbol of a system that still failed to offer true justice to those in need. The decision, unpredictable in its nuances, left the courtroom in a state of stunned silence as the community braced itself for the long, uncertain road ahead. In the immediate aftermath of the verdict, the atmosphere was thick with a mix of relief, sorrow, and uncertainty. Emily, now released under strict conditions, emerged from the courthouse with eyes that carried both hope and resignation. The community, still reeling from the tumultuous events, faced a cascade of repercussions. Legal debates, policy reviews, and a renewed public discourse on the treatment of society's most vulnerable. Keanu, despite his unwavering commitment, felt the bitter sting of unintended consequences. Every headline and every social media post served as a reminder that even acts of kindness could spark unforeseen fallout. As supporters rallied and detractors continued to debate, the reality set in that this was merely the beginning of a long, arduous journey toward healing, reform, and the restoration of faith in a system that had, for too long, turned a blind eye to suffering. With the trial behind them and the media storm gradually subsiding, Emily embarked on a tentative new beginning. Though still bearing the scars of her ordeal, she embraced the support offered by local charities and community groups determined to rebuild shattered lives. Keanu, his role now deeply intertwined with the cause, continued to champion reforms and stand by those who had been overlooked for far too long. The city, bruised but not broken, began to see flickers of change. Initiatives aimed at housing reform and social welfare gained momentum amid the public outcry. Yet, the future remained shrouded in uncertainty. Every step forward was accompanied by lingering doubts and the ever-present memory of the past. In this delicate balance between hope and hardship, both Emily and Keanu understood that while a new chapter might be opening, the journey ahead was fraught with challenges that would test their resilience and the collective will of a community desperate for true justice. As dusk settled over the city, casting long shadows on familiar streets, Keanu paused to reflect on the tumultuous events that had reshaped his world. In the quiet moments before nightfall, he pondered the unpredictable nature of life, how acts of kindness could ignite both hope and controversy, and how the struggle for justice often meandered through unexpected turns. Emily, now slowly reclaiming her life, looked toward an uncertain future with cautious optimism. The final chapters of this saga remained unwritten, a testament to the fact that every ending was merely the prelude to new conflicts and challenges. In that reflective twilight, Keanu vowed to continue fighting for those who had been silenced by the system, even as he recognized that every victory carried its own bittersweet cost. The night whispered promises of change and warnings of further strife, leaving the community and its champions suspended in a delicate balance between despair and the unyielding hope for tomorrow.